One of the questions Professor Shauna Frolick had asked us to ask ourselves for a moral structure was if everyone did this, would the world be a better place? There was one such man that did ask himself that question. He said, I have had dreams and I've had nightmares, but I have conquered my nightmares because of my dreams. For thousands of years, there have been epidemic diseases that have plagued humanity. For hundreds, possibly thousands of years, vaccinations have been known about. In our contemporary period, many people are opposed to vaccinations, but I ask you to ask yourself, if everyone did this, would the world be a better place? One such disease that has existed for thousands of years and no longer in the last century has plagued humanity is the epidemic problem of polio. Polio is a very contagious virus. It can lead to paralysis and even death. It led to such inventions as things like the iron lung, in which someone afflicted with the disease would have to live in an iron tube just to breathe. One of our greatest presidents, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was afflicted with polio at the age of 39 in 1921. The diagnosis must have been terrifying. He knew the dangers of it, and in fact, through his presidency, it left him paralyzed from the waist down. Much of the time, he had to use a wheelchair, even though much of the public didn't know that he had such an affliction. It led to the creation of what would become the March of Dimes in an effort to stop infantile paralysis. Much of these efforts that were put forth to eradicate polio were ineffective. Some of them could possibly be considered voodoo by today's medical standards. But the quotation that I read to you was from a man named Dr. Jonas Salk. Dr. Jonas Salk went to the University of Pittsburgh in 1952 he was an epidemiologist, and he worked on a vaccination for the disease of polio. By April 26, 1954, a vaccination was prepared that they thought may be effective in treating and preventing and ultimately wiping out the disease of polio. It was tested on 1.8 million elementary school students from Finland, Canada, and the United States. It was the first double-blind study ever. A double-blind study is one in which neither the doctor or the patient know if the patient is receiving the actual treatment or placebo. Statistically, the treatment proved to work, and it was the first vaccination for polio to be effective. In the next 10 years, polio became non-existent in future children. Since that time, polio is non-existent in the developed world. There are only a few remote places in Asia and Africa in which polio still does exist. It is a great thing that Dr. Salk had asked himself that question and told himself that his dreams could conquer his nightmares. Because without his work, millions of people would be paralyzed or dead, and generations would have disappeared. But because of Dr. Salk's tireless work, the disease of polio, and because of the vaccination that he had created, is virtually non-existent in our world.